Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Legion of Writers podcast. Today I have with me Obeda and Malik, both of Orthodox Sounds. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and let you know a little bit about what they do about themselves. So, Mr. Obeda, go on. You go first. Tell us about Orthodox Sounds.
All right. Orthodox Sounds. Well, maybe you want to open up with my little brother here first, because Orthodox Sounds has been his vision, and it's been something that he started prior to me even being on board as a member of Orthodox Sounds. I don't know if you want to start with him, and then I'll funnel through afterward, but
well, there you go. There's your segue.
I would give the introduction to little bro.
Talk to me about Orthodox Sounds. By the way, I subscribe, I listen, and I love it. So tell me what your story is.
First off, we want to say we appreciate that. I started off, I've been rapping since I was probably about 9 or 10 years old. Just in general, with short stories that I'd had to write for class or whatever the case was, it was always to be very descriptive and paint a picture for somebody, right? So as time progressed, I began rapping. A lot of the tracks that I started off with was really I believe I was in high school where I first started recording. Probably the first 6 tracks, easy, was all diss tracks, which is very opposite of what we've been doing, because what we've been presenting as of recently has been very conscious material. So, started off for me, I was very heavily into battle rapping. I used to do a lot of diss tracks and things like that.
He's an angry person.
Very angry. With that being said, as time progressed, I started making, other types of music as well. And then at about 2012, I became more religious, right? So I wanted to get away from the whole entire music scene in general. I sold all of my equipment that I had at the moment, and I just, I stopped listening to music, went straight cold turkey, just based off of my understanding of the religion and, how music impacted it and how it affected us on an individual basis. From time to time, people would bring me, oh, check this video out of, different artists, whether Muslim artists, other than that. And I was just like, these dudes is trash. You know what I mean? Just straight garbage. Like, you know what I mean? So, so for me, I was just like, how do I put something out? Because I never stopped writing. I've been writing since I was about 9, 10 years old. I'd always write different things. I never stopped writing, even when I did go cold turkey. I was also heavily into freestyling as well. So with that being said, I was just like, how do we do this without using musical instruments, right? So with that being said, I approached, so we came up with the name, so Orthodox Sounds, right? So for us, we happen to be Muslim. So in this case, Orthodox is in relation to our practice of religion, as well as our understanding, right? But the word Akhi, or Ak for short, AKH or AHK, depending on which part of the state you're in, it means like brother, bro. It's interchangeable with that, so the word Akhi means brother. So shorten it up, ghetto it up, it's like bro, homie, you know what I mean?
What up, Ak?
Word. So, it can be used as that, so we incorporated that within the name itself, and then followed with the sounds. We're not using musical instruments. Everything's vocal based and everything along the lines of that. So that was the initial vision for Orthodox Sounds. It was me and my boy Fundamentalist. We essentially, conceptualized it and really went, in with that mentality. He's been entirely, we describe him as the concept developer. Right. So he's behind the scenes. He's never in any of the videos, but, he gets front row seats to everything we're doing and all the thoughts and everything along the lines of that. So as we continue, we put out Who Am I, a very conscious track, spoke, very much into a lot of the injustices and things, of that caliber, that,
Things that
either I
continue
was
today, huh?
right and that are continuous as of now even. Um, so with that being said, that, take place in our communities and things like that. And even on a religious base. So, we started off with that. Furthermore, I followed it up with a track called The Band, which is currently the most viewed track for Orthodox Sounds. It was a response to Donald Trump's Muslim ban that he established. And from that point, we got connected with different people, via Instagram, Facebook, etc. And, we started working with different folks, different artists, the two artists that I've done collaborations with. Well, I did 3 collaborations with people, but 2 big artists, they're out of Canada, actually. One of them, he's from Switzerland. I did for him, which is interesting because I didn't know what the hell he was talking about on any of his words that he was saying, but I asked for a translation for it, which was pretty cool in itself. But the point of it is, I was very much into, I went through different phases of hip hop, if you will. So I had my gangster rap, I had my very political, I had my conscious, I had my super lyrical stuff. So I would like to describe myself as a well-balanced MC with, the influence that I've had, growing up and, listening to hip hop and things like that. So one person, his name is Immortal Technique. I was real big into him in like high school and everything like that. So he was very political based, always, was speaking on matters that people tried to oftenly brush under the rug. So essentially, I went in with the same mentality and was trying to do the same thing essentially. Obviously without cursing, without, certain things of that nature. Just because, as I've gotten older, I'd want to have something for my children. I don't curse around my children or anything like that. Also with the balance of me, becoming more religious. So, if you go through, if you were to, watch our videos from the oldest to the newest, you'll see that we went through.
Oh, you see a transformation.
Transformation within itself.
Because
so
I've been
watching
watching
videos.
them. I've been watching them since the beginning, since
Right.
Obeda first told me, and then he's like, "Yeah,
Right.
talk to my brother," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then you told me, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What is this?" And it's, I mean, it's stuff Obeda and I would talk about anyway, And,
Right. Yeah, so there's definitely been a transformation, even especially with the production within itself. So the first one was, I rapped that a cappella. I went to a recording studio out here. I recorded it. I got cool with the engineer, and I asked him, I'm like, listen, man, I used to have my own equipment back in the day, but I wanted to make sure that everything was up to par. So we started. So Orthodox Sounds was essentially started about almost 3 years ago now. So now I'm seeing videos that are 4K. You got high school kids, their tracks sound like something that can be played on the radio as far as production wise. So I didn't want to go in like some of these other local artists that they just, essentially just half-assing it, right? So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that, we did it properly. I went to the studio, asked him, he was like, listen, man, I'm a gearhead, bro. I'll tell you what to get. I can tell you, my utmost suggestion. And I can also give you a discounted range of equipment that you can get as well, right? So
I'm all about a discounted alternative.
Well, for me, I was like, you know what? I'm all in. I said I want to get everything that is, up to par. I want to get everything, the highest quality. I want to really do this at this point. I don't feel that this is going to infringe on my religious beliefs. I'm going to stay away from certain things that, I've I've made sure to stay away from up to this point once, due to my transformation and everything like that. So, with that being said, I wanted to go all in. So I, slowly but surely I set up, so realistically, only the first video that we have has been recorded in professionals in a recording studio. After that, everything is solely done by us. In-house, everything in-house. Got my own studio. I'm in it right now as we speak. And with that being said, the way I look at it is, you know, if you can set stuff up yourself and cut out the middleman, there's no reason to have a middleman, you know.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
especially with me having, you know, different jobs and things like that, different schedules, and with the kids and everything like that, you know, I might wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's like, yo, you know what? I'm gonna go drop a verse. or, you know, I might be up early in the morning after 5 o'clock after prayer or something like that. I'm like, you know what? Let me go do a verse, as opposed to, oh, now I got to make an appointment. Now I got to pay. I got to do all this extra things. You know what I mean? So it becomes a lot more convenient for me. So that's where we came. So within the production, like I was mentioning, production drastically changed. So I tried to, you know, so the first two, they were recorded solely a cappella. After the a cappella tracks, then, you know, I met somebody, you know, his name is Ilyas Mao. He's out of Canada. He's a producer as well as a songwriter, singer, etc. He made me vocal beats, and, you know, we utilized those for a little bit and everything like that. And, you know, I was talking to some of my older heads and, like, you know, that are actually in the hip hop community. You know, I don't need to name drop or anything like that. But they were just like, hey man, you know, it's dope, but from a production standpoint, you got to have more drops. It doesn't really sound too hip hop-ish, right? So I'm like, I can see that. I can see that, you know. And with, you know, after meeting my producer, one of my boys, you know, shout out to Crazy C, put me on with the producer, Jay Hostile. After, you know, connecting with him, you know, he's never done this before. He's like, yo, this nigga got me making music without music. Like, this is crazy. You know what I mean? So, you know, with that being said, you know, it was a starting point for him as well, too, you know, because he's been a music producer for, you know, I don't know how many decades at this point, you know, and, you know, everything has been, you know, musical instruments. So now when I'm telling them, you know, okay, no musical instruments, we want to solely just use vocals and things like that. You know, it was definitely something for him to get accustomed to as well. But once we both, you know, or once we got a hang of it, you know, that's where we really started to, I believe, stand out. And obviously down the road. So initially, to capitalize based or to speak on what Resonance said, what he mentioned was,
that's me.
You know,
that's me. I'm Resonance.
That's him. Right. So what he mentioned was, you know, he wasn't a part of it from the jump. So our initial conversation that I had with him was misunderstood. So what I told him was essentially, I'm trying to build
he was afraid. He was afraid of
What was he afraid of?
He was afraid of the greatness that I was going to bring to the table.
Well, because you wrote as a kid too. Both of you were writing as kids.
Right.
And doing stuff. So
yeah, I agree with both of us writing, but being afraid was never a factor.
Only when we step in the ring.
Never that.
Okay, so let me just segue here. For those of you who don't know, Obeda, he and I were coworkers. We still are
AKA
Resonance.
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 I know she's dropping government names.
I know, man. She dropping government names here, boy.
Listen, I've got death threats. You about to send them right to the house.
All right, so who do you want to be? Who do you want to be?
Yo, look at my name's right there. It's 3 letters. It's very simple.
All right, KHD and Resonance. There we go.
It's kilohertz.
Kilohertz.
You're killing me. Resonance. Dudes, I'm old school hip hop. I'm from like Sugar Hill Gang, South Bronx, on the street, listening to it and learning it and hearing it. So way back in the 70s. So which is why, but this is why I love what you guys do. Like,
yeah, for sure.
It feels true. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I did a podcast. I did a podcast last week actually with you know, Mr. Marcus.
Yeah.
I did a podcast for his group, and like, you know, they're all, you know what I mean, older heads, grew up with, you know, hip hop in the 80s and 90s. And they all, you know what I mean, really enjoy. They all went and listened to like all our stuff, and they're like, yo, there's just something about it that just
there is
back
I
to,
love it.
You know, the you know, hip hop from before. But
golden age hip hop.
We'll get into our names later. We won't talk about that now. Let's keep on with the initial question. We're getting off topic. I apologize.
No, you're fine. That's it. I told you this is a conversation. And the fact that I know you guys makes it even better because I can talk to you guys about other stuff, but I've never really spoken to you about this.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I said, it's something that I enjoy because of the trueness of it. I love the message. I love the message that every single track has because I believe in it.
Right.
And you know, I'm always liking your stuff on Facebook and sharing it, and we're having our own private conversation while people are bitching at us for having that conversation.
Right.
So we do that all the time. But it brings me back, especially that last one. I was like, damn, I felt like I was a little kid again, you know, and
Right.
listen, I was like, block party. No, I'm sorry. But in a good way. You know what I mean? Like because there was a message. Because back then there was a message. Yes, it was about music. Yes, it was, but there was a message. And somewhere along the line, I think we lost it.
Absolutely.
You know?
In many regards, at least.
And sometimes it's just about the bottom line, but it shouldn't be about the bottom line. And that's why I like what you guys do. You know, I really do like it. So, I mean, but talk to me. Tell me about dragging this one in with you.
Yeah. So initially, our initial conversation we had, well, I guess it was misunderstood. So
I don't recall any of this.
Our initial conversation was misunderstood, and you know, what took place was, you know, I mentioned that, you know, I want to start a movement. I mentioned I wanted to start a movement. I mentioned videographers, different MCs, because I knew nothing about videography at the time. So after our second video is when I invested in my own equipment. You know, I took webinars, spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on YouTube trying to learn how to do this stuff. You know, and, you know, I actually have my own business set up currently due to, you know, the eagerness I had. And I was, you know, because I've always been a visionary, and that's what all of this was. So, you know, the videographer, shout out to my boy Damaging Minds, you know, he was like, yo, you doing making my job easy. You pretty much doing all the work for me. I'm like, do this here, do this there. You know what I mean? I was very specific as to what I wanted. So back to what I was mentioning, our initial conversation we had, I believe it was misunderstood. I talked about, you know, how I wanted different people for different things, but I believe what he understood it as, you know, you already have you as the MC. So, you know, you're suffice in that regard, but you're only looking for other people in other areas. But essentially what I was trying to do is make like a common grounds for a Muslim a Muslim Wu-Tang, if you will, you know what I mean? And, but the thing is, you know, a lot of people are people are not, they're not very reliable either. And, you know, so we've had different people in our videos on different tracks and things like that. But overall, as far as for committing time to just record, mind you, free studio time, mind you, free videos, because you're involved with something we're doing. Exactly. And it's so difficult for people to commit to that, you know? And it's just like, you know, it's crazy to me because even now people are still paying for studio time. And I'm telling you, I'm going to give you free studio time. And if I rock with you like that, I'm probably not even going to charge you to do another track that I'm not even on. You know what I mean? So it's just like, you know, with all of that in account, it was just like, you know, I observed it as people are just slacking. You know, there's no other way of doing it. But, you know, when I told him to hop on board is, you know, we did something that we never released actually. And we're pretty much going to redo that track. But the first one that he probably recorded on, you know, we happen to both be type 1 diabetic. So we made a track that was discussing our experiences, you know, with
diabetes.
Yeah, I have diabetes. We might even have to sample that, bro. Word. So like, you know, so we had a you know, it was a track discussing our experience on becoming diabetic and just dealing with it. You know, I got it at the age of 3. He got it 4 years after I did. You know, so it was, you know, it's definitely, you know, crazy within itself. But that's
a conspiracy.
How the story went.
It's a conspiracy that we both have diabetes.
Big facts. But you know, with all that being said, you know, so that was his first track. Followed by that, we did followed by that, what did we do? We did what?
More to the story.
More to the story, right? Yeah, we did more to the story, right? So it was his first video appearance as an MC, right? Because he's obviously cameoed in majority of the videos that I've put out up until that point. So at that point, that was his first video that he actually had a verse on. He was part of the hook. And this one in particular was a lot different than what we've been putting out up to that point as well, too. Yes, we were talking about injustices and everything like that, but it was just a different angle that we came with things. You know, it wasn't, you know, we had a hook for it, you know, because up until that, well, the first two ones that we had hooks for and everything like that, you know, one was get out the room, man. I told you, OrthodAkhs is for the children. But yeah, with that being said, with that being said, you know, just the angle that we approached it with, you know, he was telling more so of a story, and I just wanted to be a lot very, very general as far as where I was coming from. And that was pretty much like his first appearance, you know, publicly with people seeing him. Because again, nobody other than, you know, a very small circle, our family members and things like that, have only heard the other track that we recorded. So for this one, you know, it was like, okay, his first appearance as an MC under OrthodAkhs Sounds. And you know, like he always says, iron sharpens iron. And at that point, we just continue to grow and grow and grow up until now. And I'll let him jump in now. I'm sure y'all are tired of hearing me talk at this point, but that's the point in which he kind of,
because that usually they have to hear me, so it's fine. You're good.
So at this point, that's when he really turned up on the scene, and I'll pass it to him from there.
Bueno,
yes.
muchacho.
What was that?
I said, bueno, muchacho.
So yeah, like he said, I wasn't initially part of the OrthodAkhs Sounds movement. And there was tracks that he was putting out, and I'll just say it, man. He had one track, Counterfeit, that again, I shot most of the video. I shot several of the videos, so I was involved, but I was just helping in the background. And obviously with my brother, you know me, I don't really sugarcoat things. So I'm like, yo, man, I'm not feeling it, man. Like some of these cats, like these verses, this vibe, man, it's not right. It's not the right vibe. And I think that it was at that point where he was like, yo, man, like, yo, can you still write? Which I guess I'll digress for a second. To like my history as far as writing goes. Me personally, I didn't grow up a battle rapper. I didn't do much freestyling. I wasn't hopping into ciphers, similar to like KHZ, like Kilohertz. My background, I used to write a lot of poetry. So a lot of what I would do was, as he mentioned, more to the story, it was storytelling, painting vivid pictures, to where people can follow along through my voice, what I'm trying to depict. And a lot of that was poetry, or it was just freestyle storytelling. In high school, I had my 11th grade English teacher. She was like a walking dictionary, and she drilled analogies into us and told us that we all needed to get high SAT scores, and that she was going to be sure that we got into whatever college we want, and it got paid for free. So at that point, she was throwing a lot of stuff at us. And on a weekly basis, we had between 20 and 30 words, random, stupid words that you've never heard of in your life. And she would say, hey, you have to do a free writing piece with all of these words. A lot of people, they did, basic stuff. They wrote individual sentences for each word. I'm like, yo, what are we in second grade? Like, who does that? So what I would do is I would write a poem with those 20 to 30 words. or I write a story with those 20 to 30 words. Then I got into online like topical battles. So back in the day, there was a whole bunch of online forums I haven't even checked out. They probably still exist, where they would do online like freestyle battles essentially. Some were like battle rap, similar to what my brother used to engage in, where you're just dissing the other person. But some of them were topical battles. For example, they might give a topic. You're trapped on a desert island. Go, and that's the topic. And there would be 6 people that would have to write basically a verse about that topic. And I used to do a ton of those. And what I would do is I would use my 20 to 30 words from the week, and that's what I would drop in my topical battle. So, hey, I see my nephew Eunice. Hey, Bubba. So yeah, so that's where my writing started essentially. I would categorize a hip hop head, probably more of an East Coast hip hop head. Really into, some of the same people my brother was into, but a lot of different people that my brother wasn't into. One of my main influences or major influences was Pharoah Monch growing up. Just the stuff that he writes and the double entendres, and you could listen to the same track 5 different times and not hear everything that's within the words of what, he puts out there. And that's what I really always enjoyed. But yeah, just grew up in that, I would call it more of that golden age of hip hop, 90s through, I don't know, you could categorize a little bit of the early 2000s as well. But yeah, so that's kind of like my that's my, I guess, musical reference, so to speak, or how I started with things. So when he approached me after, I told him, I said, hey man, we gotta go a different direction with a few different things. And he's like, nah man, we got this, man. Like, I'm gonna take care of, I'm gonna take care of some things. And then long story short, like he said, people weren't I don't want to say reputable. It was more, they were just, you couldn't count on them, right? They weren't reliable. He was asking people, hey, we need to record by this date and have this done and this. And they were taking 4 months, 5 months to write a 16. Like, why you take 5 months to write a 16? Like, you should take couple hours, maybe. I don't know. Like when we wrote the track, the diabetic track, like we wrote that because at certain parts we actually volley back and forth. So we wrote that together, like in the same room, just spitting stuff off of each other back and forth. And we prayed in between, and that took us maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, because we were messing around and the kids were there, so, not having reliable people, he's like, yo, jump on, help me out. This is going to take off and you're going to be on board and we're going to reach whatever level we're going to reach. And then whether you with me or you're not with me, at least get me in the door. He had already had everything established. He already made the sacrifices to start OrthodAkhs Sounds. Basically I came in just as big bro, essentially, right? Like, yo, I'm gonna help my brother out. I'm gonna get on these tracks. I'm gonna spit these dope verses, and hopefully that's gonna give him, or us in this case, more exposure. And at the end of the day, if me doing what I'm doing right now helps him one day to be blown up in a big artist, then I'm happy. You know what I mean? I'm not worried about necessarily what it does for me. That's not me saying that I'm not excited to go on tour. I'm excited to do shows because I'm all in on that too. But my main purpose for joining in the first place is to take him to whatever level he wants to go. So yeah, jumped on more to the story. That was the first one, and that was like my first time writing, like legit since. And he said he kept writing, so that was my first time writing in I don't know how many years. Used to write a lot in high school. early college years, I wrote a lot, but I got married when I was 22. Kids right off the bat, life, work. So I really hadn't written in 10 plus years. Little, maybe here and there, little things, little poems or whatever.
So
But
we talked about that before, about
yeah,
your
yeah,
writing. And you wanted to jump back in, but you didn't know how you would even do, and because it had
yeah,
been so long.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let me ask you, for both of you, you who continued writing and you who picked it up again, is it satisfying in a way that you can still find, not only that you can do it, but you can convey the message that you want?
For me
Yeah.
personally, I I I would say yes, absolutely. But what's interesting about that question is, or rather on the answer side of it is, you know, even with the sort of music, or the subgenre of hip hop that I would oftenly listen to, especially, growing up here in Orlando, right? They're like, oh, you just trying to be different and da da da. It's like, no, I just don't like the typical Southern rap that everybody constantly plays over and over on the radio. So for me, so to be able to convey that message as what you asked, you have to have a certain level of vocabulary. You have to, know how to write to a certain degree and things like that. You have to be descriptive. You have to paint a vivid picture for your audience. So with all of that being said, it, for me at least, it's satisfying, and additional to that, it's interesting because oftentimes I see other writers, maybe from their posts or other MCs, other artists, whatever, and they're like, dang man, I'm stumped. I don't know what to, I don't know what to write about. You know what I mean? I don't know, I got writer's block. And I've never experienced that ever. I've never experienced that. And I'm just, and I'll sit back and I'll look at it like, dang, like if you're a writer, how do you have a block? Like, you know what I mean? The only thing I will say is, this kid's weirdo. The only thing I will say is, you know, is, you're mentally blocked from other things. So as a result, you cannot think, as progressive as you would like to, right? So for me, like, when I write, or just in general, like, I can be at, I could go to Walmart, whatever the case is. I could be watching a movie. I could be at work, and a punchline might come in my head, or a certain rhyme scheme or a rhyme pattern or whatever the case is. And I'll take my phone out and I'll jot it down. Like in my phone, I have sections of just writtens, you know what I mean? So then now when I'm writing, I'm like, I come across something and I'm like, okay, I did that. Maybe that was a cool rhyme scheme right there. Let me add a dope punchline. So then I'll go through my list and like, oh, let me grab that, drop it there. You know what I mean? So I'm constantly in a mindset of, okay, of bringing product out, you know what I mean? Of having some sort of content to where, I'm pretty much equipped for what's coming next. You know what I mean? So for me, yes, to answer your question, it is satisfying. And oftentimes, the people who were dumbed down to this, ridiculous form of what people define as hip hop or rap these days, right? It actually it actually encourages them to pick up a book and and not to be so limited in their understanding of life.
Oh, I know.
Whether that be history, or whether that be current events, or whether that be vocabulary, or whatever the case is. But by no means are we encouraging, the idiocracy and the stereotypes that come along with certain cultures and things of that nature. So for me, yes, it is actually rewarding in itself, and it's very satisfying.
And you?
For me, it's I'm busy, for me it's like an escape. Obviously me, so like, one of my more recent escapes is I've been fishing like crazy, right?
Crazy.
Always fishing. I just bought this little raft boat, going in lakes and fishing, right, all the time. But like, that's an escape. That's just time for me to like chill. And for me, like when I write, it's one and the same. It's time for me to escape. reality, so to speak. Sometimes it'll be similar to like what my brother mentioned with, you might be at work and something pops into your head. You might just be driving and something pops into your head. But like to sit down and put everything together, it's more of just that time where I can just not worry about anything else, not worry about work, not worry about home, kids, just life, and I can just boom, let me just put this pencil to this paper, which yes, I very often still use pencil and paper.
What? You see me, I always have a notebook.
Yeah, I still like my little still like my little steno flip back pad, and just have the pencil in there, and I keep it with my bag and keep it in my bag. I use the phone too, you know what I mean? I'll write in there as well. But sometimes I just like to break out that pen and that paper and just write and just escape from it all. And then at the end of the day, the other side of it is like the purpose for me writing. The purpose, again, on a lot of these tracks is, like he mentioned, to bring something conscious to the table, or to bring something that we believe in back to the table, so to speak. And I feel that when I'm writing, like it has a purpose. It's not just, all right, well, let me just write to write. Sometimes I'll write to write because some random thought will pop into my head, and I've got bunch of verses that have nothing to do with anything, right? But at the same token, like it has a purpose, and I think people deep down inside, they have stuff in them that they never let surface, and I'm the type of person, I don't let a lot of stuff surface either, but I feel like when I write, I can let some of that come to the forefront at least.
So what would be your recommendation to someone, because obviously you have a vision, you both do, about where you want this to go. What would be your recommendation to, let's say, somebody younger who's listening to your sounds, listening to your music, and wondering if they can do the same?
The biggest recommendation I would say is to go subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Secondly, after that,
y'all heard that. Subscribe to their channel on YouTube. Shameless plug.
No, on a serious note, because that's what people oftenly do. They see other people doing stuff, and then they're like, oh, I want to do it too. And some people, I don't want to sound arrogant, or I don't want to sound, like I'm shaming people or anything, but some people, they're better off just not writing at all. You know what I mean? Or just never releasing it to the public. I'm going to be honest, right? But for the people that, they're eager about it, they're like, no, I'm really in tune with this. I do want to write, I do want to express myself. As, many people, this is a form of expression. This is their only escape, this is their only escape, and things like that. I would just say, just continue to build your craft. That's the key point. Like even with stuff we do, it's just, and like I said, you go back. I mean, we started this almost 3 years ago. You go back from then to now, bars, was definitely there. Punchlines, word schemes, everything like that is definitely there. But there's a drastic growth that took place because we continue to build our craft. We continue to work on our craft. So it's like, it's not like, oh, you ever feel like, oh, I've arrived, I've made it, right? Like even some of my favorite artists, even now, it's still like, this man just laid something down crazy. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and you still appreciate what maybe what you have listened to in the past. But, you constantly want to just continue to do that. You know what I mean? Check out different people's styles of writing, oh man, she got the corona. But nah, anyways, check out, she over there coughing.
Where's my mask at?
Good thing we ain't in person, man.
Yeah.
No. I got the asthma. I gotta go.
I would say the same thing if I had Corona. But anyway, so you know, with that being said, you know, just continue to work on your craft. That's the most
That's
important thing, because I've
You
seen
have-
some people that started off, and I personally felt, I'm like, this guy just needs to put something down. He continued to work, and I'm like, you know what? At this point now, I believe the man has potential. And I've been in contact with him, and he'll hit me up from time to time, like, hey, what do you think I need to work on? And then he'll key in on those certain things that I mentioned, and he'll really work on his craft. He'll fix whatever, you know what I mean, whatever advice I've given him. And, you know, I constantly see progression. And that's what's key for any writer, whether it's hip hop, whether it's book writing, poetry, short stories, whatever it may be, you know, a script, you know, just continue to build on it, you know. Even sometimes, you know, like what Rez was saying is, you know, just write just to write sometimes, you know.
Yeah,
You know,
you have to.
you may stumble across, you know, a different
Hidden gem.
That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you never know.
So,
Well,
that's my advice.
It might be something applicable to something else, but you didn't know it until you wrote it.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so one of the reasons, the biggest reason that I wanted you guys on here, besides the fact that I like the music, okay, is because you are at your core, you're writers. And I've met a lot of writers in the past couple of years who, how do I say this nicely? No, there's no way to say it nicely. They, like you said, they just put people down for no reason other than that they are not writing what they are writing. And my whole thing is writing is whether you are writing music, whether you're writing poetry, short stories, whatever. Everyone goes through a similar journey. Your endpoint is your endpoint, okay? But the journey is the same. And you're right. There are some folks that, you know what, put that notebook away, go do something else, okay?
Yeah.
It's just not. But for a lot of folks who really are reliable, want to apply themselves, want to continue to learn, sometimes they need those folks to follow or to learn from, okay?
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you guys on here, because whether you realize it or not, you're becoming role models. You are role models to your own children, you know, and to others who are listening. You know, you got old timers listening, you got, you know, younger kids listening, and they're wondering, what is this?
Right.
You know, and not just what the story is, because there's always a story, okay? But they're wondering, either I like this because I like this, I like this because it means something, or I like this because I want to do the same thing or something similar. So that was one of the reasons why bringing you guys on was so important, because I'm trying to expose folks to all different kind of writing. So I'm going to have a comic book artist on here as well. Like, people put down comic books. I'm sorry, I didn't read crap when I was younger. I didn't like to read until I got stuck in a hospital for 4 days. And guess what they brought me? Comic books. I read comic books.
Yeah.
After that, finally, I read books. But I hated reading when I was a kid. Hated it. Okay? And I didn't write. My mother wrote. I didn't write. And then I started picking it up. So everyone finds their
niche,
their line, their direction at a different point in time.
Yeah.
You guys, it's almost like you've reassessed and reconfigured yourselves to get back on that track. And it's nice to see. It's really nice to see. And it's nice to hear.
Yeah, and I think KHZ, he already mentioned it, but I think key for anybody, you know, you mentioned what recommendations we would have for younger or someone who's starting to write. Just, he said steel sharpens steel, right? So like, you just got to surround yourself with the right people, like-minded people, or people who you know are going to have your back to grow. So like, whoever is beginning to write, doesn't matter if they're writing comics, they're writing, it doesn't matter what they're writing, like you said, you have to find people who are like-minded, or people that are going to drive you to be better at that. And when you can find those individuals, I think that plays the biggest role and the biggest part You know, I always say, hey man, I tell my brother, I say, yo, all your verses since I've been on these tracks are better. All of them, period. Whether or not he agrees with that or disagrees with that, but his schemes, his flows, he's changing things up. Even we'll start a track, he'll have an initial verse. I'll send him my verse, then he'll tweak something, and I'll be like, oh no, I gotta tweak it, right? To where it's almost like we're battling each other, but we're not, because we're convening with the same message. We're bringing the same thing to the table, but we're constantly trying to better each other. If he says something or something doesn't sound right, I'm gonna be like, yo, that was whack, like straight up, not from a mean standpoint.
For the record, he's never said that, because nothing that comes out of my mouth is whack. But I had to continue though.
Y'all are
terrible. But nah, like the thing is some people are afraid to have that person who are gonna be blunt and honest with them, but from a point of love, right? Because there's a difference. There's like,
there is.
hey, there's all right, yeah, I read it, I listened to it, it sucks. And then you offer nothing else, right? You don't offer any suggestions on how to make that better or how to proceed. Okay, you just tell me I suck. What do you want me to do with that information? You know what I mean? Which I feel like a lot of people do nowadays, and those are the quote unquote haters, so to speak, right? They're gonna just say, hey, that wasn't good, and leave it at that. They don't give it, okay, it wasn't good, but it wasn't good because this. What was kind of good is this, let's play off of that better, right? They don't give those teaching points, so to speak. And maybe it's the teacher in me or the instructor in me. Yeah. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm a martial arts instructor, long time. That's why I know Laura.
But it's true, because when I get asked about a story, the first thing I ask folks is, do you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
Because if they don't want me to be honest, I tell them, don't give it to me to read, because I'm going to tell you exactly what I think.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not to be negative, because I always give it back with something constructive. But it's like, you know, if you got to have a thick skin. If you do any of what we do, you have to have a thick skin.
Yeah,
because you want someone to tell you the truth.
Right.
If my book sucked, please tell me, and tell me why. If it just sucks because you just want to say it sucks, that's not good enough.
By the way, where's the Audible?
I just made arrangements with your brother to use his booth.
All right. Cool.
I just made arrangements with him.
I've been telling her forever, yo, get these freaking books, all these books that she has and the anthologies, like, yo, get them on audiobook, man.
So good.
Right.
They freak you out though. They're weird. I got young writers, older writers, creepy.
Yeah, for sure. For all the listeners out there, I grew up reading a lot and fell away from it. And well, I believe I fell away from it because I was at a high reading level very early and read books I wasn't supposed to read when I was in elementary and middle school. And once I got to high school, I'm like, college, I have no reason to read these books. I already read them. Plus, I can write an essay better than everyone else off Spark Notes. So, by the way, don't do that for all the
listeners. You said something about a role model earlier.
I know. I did say something about role model, right?
No Spark Notes, my point in saying all that is, my wife got me into audiobooks, and I will just go and I'll go for a drive in my car and just listen to an audiobook, and I really enjoy the audiobooks. Nothing against reading, but I just know that the books that I've really enjoyed. By the way, have you listened to Confederacy of Dunces yet?
No, not yet.
You need to. Hilarious.
Okay.
But like, if I read that book, I wouldn't have enjoyed it. I know for a fact I wouldn't have enjoyed that book, but listening to it, it was amazing. It was a great book. It was hilarious. So I've been into the audio thing for quite some time. It's more, I guess, convenient.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
One other thing, if you don't mind, that I would like to add, that it goes back to for a suggestion, as well as kind of relevant as far as, you know, just the background as well too. Because he kind of mentioned, you know, as far as, you know, him reading and how he, you know, when he reached high school, everything just seemed very simplistic for him at that time. For me, it was on the other hand for me, right? So teachers in elementary, middle school, they said that I have a slow reading level, right? I have a low reading level, you know? That's what they would often say. And this was portrayed. this was all.
You can use, man. You can use this section of the clip and zoom in on both of our faces, and they'll know exactly what he's talking about.
Nah, so you know, so teachers they would say, like, you know, oh, you know, he needs to get his reading level higher and things like that. So then this is something that my mother would also say to me often as well too. Oh, you got to read more, da da da. And I'm just like, man, what are they talking about, man? My reading level is fine, right? But what that caused me to do, and again, to, you know, for a suggestion for young writers, whatever, just keep striving, because my same teachers that told me I had a, you know, a low reading level or whatever the case is, by high school hit, I was in AP classes, I was in honors classes for reading. You know, my vocabulary level was higher than, you know, a good majority of other, you know, students around me as well, due to all of the extra books that I read, because my mother and teachers were essentially in a child's brain, you're telling me like, yo, this nigga's retarded, right? So with that, it's just like, yo, I'm gonna prove I'm not retarded. Let me read some books. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much
only partially.
So that's essentially what it boiled down.
Differently abled.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
So that's
you got to be politically correct. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. I'm not good with that. I'm a very blunt. I'm a very blunt person. I'm not good with that. Yeah, we could make that happen. We can make that happen. But yeah, so you know, that caused me. It gave me some sort of you know, a drive to continue to strive and learn more. And you know, I had different vocabulary books from, I remember, my English teachers and stuff like that. And I would be like, hey, you got another one? You know what I mean? And just, you know, because there was different levels to it, right? So the thing is, you know, and I would, you know, and I still have them now even. And just like some of the words, like he mentioned is like, oh, some of these words you have never even heard of. But now when you start to understand them, you get more of an understanding of root words and why this word means this and why, you know what I mean? And things like that. So for me, you know, I didn't start off where it's very simple. Like I always wrote, but you know, but on a reading basis, it was a little different. But as I continued to read more and things like that, that's what helped me sharpen my my craft in a sense.
Every writer has to read. You have to, or listen on Audible, but you have to expose yourself to what's out there, or you'll never know what's out there, and you'll never know just how you can actually, you know, put words to paper, really.
Yeah.
And yes, I am still old school. I do still have my notebooks. I'm making notes now. It's like, everybody laughs at me about my notebooks, but you know what? I know where everything is. If I put something on a file here, I don't know what the hell I named it. So then I'm searching for it forever. So before we check out and stuff, you guys have to tell me about your names.
Okay.
You got KHC, Kilohertz, and then you have.
I'm gonna take this one.
All right, this one. Talk to me. Tell me about the names.
These names are what they are. I'm gonna take responsibility for these names in a sense. So you know, the whole concept of Orthodox Sounds was meant to be a movement, right? So as far as right now goes, we are the only 2 Orthodox Sounds members currently. By the way, stay tuned. Got another video dropping in a few weeks. Several others on deck, already been recorded tracks, and then an EP gonna be coming as well in the next few months, God willing, inshallah. So back to the names. So he was like, yo, I think, I don't know who said it first, but I think that, again, Orthodox sounds, but now that there's more than one person, what is everybody in the group's names, right? My brother's MC name back in the day was Caution, okay?
Yeah.
And he went by that tag name when he did all his battle raps and whatnot, right? That was Caution. My online topical name was the Infatuated Versifier. That was my online tag name, right? That I used to write under. So basically we were like, yo, we need like names, right? Like we're not Obeda and Malik as part of Orthodox Sounds. I guess we could be, but like that's lame. So, different ideas were thrown around, this, that, the other, and the whole concept was for this to be a movement. So my thought process was, well, we're Orthodox Sounds. We need something that has to do with sound. Mm-hmm. We need to take the concept of sound, and our names need to be based around that. And my example was, look at Bone Thugs and Harmony, for example, right? You got Busy Bone, you got Lazy Bone, you got Wishbone, you got Flesh and Bone, you got Crazy Bone, right? Like yeah. Bone Thugs, right? Now, those all have different meanings, but they're all as Bone Thugs, right? Bone Thugs and Harmony.
There's like, a theme.
Exactly. There's a theme to it. I'm like, all right, like what if we do like sounds, like something sounds, but like name sounds, like that didn't seem right. So we threw around a bunch of different ideas, and I'm like, what if the concept of our name is just something that has to do with sound in general? And that's very, very broad, right? Which again, we chose our names based on what we personally liked. But it opens the door for further Orthodox Sounds members to be able to pull from a different part of sound, so to speak. So, my name, you can see it how I have it spelled here. It's spelled all crazy, right?
I wrote it down, so I made sure I got it.
Resonating noise or resonating sounds. So for me, I was like, resonance, like that's dope, right? Like people, actually, one of the producers that my brother mentioned earlier has asked me to sing because he likes the raspiness and the melodic drum of my voice, which I don't feel that I'm a good singer or a bad singer.
Me neither.
I can definitely keep a tune when it comes to that. But he's like, there's just something about your voice. And a lot of people say that, and you've worked with me for however many years. I have a different voice. So I was like, that's it, resonance. And, we are Irish. Our grandfather is Irish. So that's why I spell it the way I spell it, with the O, res apostrophe O man. So that's where I got my tag name for Orthodox Sounds, so to speak. I'll let Killer Hertz go ahead and step in and grab the mic.
Based on what I know about him, I kind of figured out what that is, but go ahead.
Well,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I don't know either, but I guess I'll start. Nah, so for me, something simple, kilohertz. It's abbreviated out KHZ. It's a unit of frequency, right? So kilo, or kilo, if you will, right? It means 1,000. So it's talking about 1,000 cycles per minute, whatever the case is, or within that frequency. The thing is, it meant a few other things. I would say somebody, especially from a battle rapping standpoint, I would say, even if you look at, a rapper like, Killer Cam or Cameron, it's like Killer Cam. It's just like, okay, it's not necessarily attributed to that in particular. It's just like, when somebody's a big dog, he's automatically a killer, you know what I mean? So it's just like, with that being said, kilohertz. It's representing as such as the name. I like how it rolls off the tongue, everything like that. How you write it out, 3 simple letters. And that's pretty much, you know. Oh, and then what Miss Laura here was saying, why she figured, you know, I'm also an electrician, right? So I'm also an electrician. I'm a licensed electrician. So also to engage within that, this is something that I deal with quite oftenly. You know what I mean? As far as measurements and things of that nature. So that's pretty much where we came up with our names from.
Well, you guys have been amazing. And honestly, I could stay here and talk with you guys for a while, but I know it's getting later. You guys are getting hungrier and tired. And I think
we still got a few hours. We got 5 hours.
You got 3.5 hours, 4 hours.
5.
5? No,
almost
7,
5.
7
8,
something. Yeah.
8:03.
Oh,
8:03, 8:04 right now.
oh, yeah.
Not as bad as you think. I normally cut 20 pounds. I was real fat this year. So I was up to like 215. I'm already at 200. So anybody that want to cut some weight, man, you might as well partake in Ramadan as well too. You know what I mean?
You should have reminded me, man. I need to drop 35 pounds to get my surgery done.
You might as well start now. No surgery necessary. We getting it in, you know what I mean? From a spiritual aspect as well too. You know, knocking 2 birds out with 1 stone. That's how we get it.
Well, thank you guys for joining us on Legion of Writers
Appreciate
podcast.
you having us.
Appreciate it.
I will be having these guys back hopefully for a different tweak, maybe after the release of the next video and stuff. Maybe we can spotlight that and highlight that a little bit. So thank you for joining us on Legion of Writers podcast. And thank you to all of you for listening, downloading, and subscribing. Make sure you follow them on YouTube, Orthodox Sounds. And
spell it out for them, Miss Laura.
Safe.
OrthoDAkhs.
Oh, I'm gonna spell it out for them. Don't worry. I got you.